4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon to one and all, and welcome to this press conference by the Government of Anguilla. We'll start by asking the Honorable Mr. Evan McNeil Rogers to lead us off with a word of prayer.
Thank you very much, Madam Premier. Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us safely to this gathering here today. We thank you for your continuous mercies. We ask that you continue to guide and watch over us as we deliberate and make decisions for the vast majority of our Anguillan people. Lord, we know that anything we put to you, you would aid and assist us going forward. We pray for our people. We pray for this nation as we celebrate next week Anguilla Day, 59th anniversary of Anguilla Day. We pray for the past leaders, the present leaders, and the future leaders to be able to chart a way forward for us and our people. These mercies we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Honorable Neil. We'll start off by extending our deepest and heartfelt condolences to the family, friends, and loved ones of Mr. Jeffrey Jackson, Mr. Kevin Hodge, and Mr. Preston Brooks. And we're also aware of a number of persons who are either in Anguilla or overseas, ill and recovering, and we extend our wishes for a speedy recovery to those persons as well. Today, I am pleased to highlight that the Government of Anguilla's 2027 Citizens Budget Priorities Survey, led by the Budget Unit within the Ministry of Finance, is now underway. This initiative forms part of the government's continued commitment to transparency, public engagement, and inclusive decision-making in the national budget process. The survey provides residents of Anguilla with an opportunity to share their views on the areas they believe should be prioritized in the 2027 budget and the broader medium-term planning process. We recognize that the people of Anguilla are directly impacted by the decisions made through the national budget, and it is important that their voices help shape those decisions. The information collected through the survey will help to inform government's planning, policy discussions, and resource allocation as we prepare for the 2027 budget cycle. And many persons would recall that we have had a similar exercise conducted last year for the 2026 budget as well. At the same time, the government has also commenced the Medium-Term Expenditure and Fiscal Planning Framework, the MTEF, process for the upcoming budget cycle. Throughout this month, the Ministry of Finance and the Budget Unit are engaging ministries and departments and have also invited observers from the Caribbean Development Bank, the CDB, the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, the FCDO, and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the ECCB, to participate in strategic planning discussions focused not only on the 2027 budget, but also on Anguilla's medium-term fiscal outlook, development priorities, and long-term sustainability. This year's mission comes at an important time as Anguilla continues to benefit from strong revenue performance, including growth in the .ai revenues, while also managing global uncertainty, inflationary pressures, and emerging external risks. This process is important in ensuring that the government's policies, spending priorities, and revenue strategies remain aligned with national goals and fiscal responsibility over the coming years. The Citizens Budget Priorities Survey complements this work by ensuring that the public's voice is incorporated into these broader planning discussions. And I encourage all residents to participate and make their voices heard before the survey closes on Wednesday, May 20th. The survey is simple, it's accessible, and it provides an important opportunity for public involvement in shaping the future development of Anguilla. On behalf of the Government of Anguilla, I would like to thank the Budget Unit and all partners involved in bringing this initiative forward, and I look forward to meaningful public participation in this important process. In the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Constitutional Reform Committee was formed in October of 2025. It has been steadily working at reviewing the Constitution with the intention to create a draft for review. I understand that they will soon have an initial draft to lay before us. The draft will be reviewed and then will proceed to public consultation, and I will keep you updated as things progress. The Labor Department is seeking to implement a labor management system to aid them in monitoring and addressing the labor relations matters within the private sector. Recently, a team from the Ministry of Labor, Department of Labor, and DITES visited the BVI on a fact-finding mission to review the labor management information system and observe the operations of the Labor Department. It was a very insightful visit, and the teams were able to share experience and knowledge. The persons who were in attendance were the PAS for the Ministry of Home Affairs, Ms. Shamika Hodge, the Deputy Labor Commissioner, Ms. Shanisha Richard, Senior Labor Inspector, Ms. Karina Lake, Senior Analyst Programmer at DITES, Mrs. Donette Bryan Lico. And as the Honorable Mr. Evan McNeil Rogers will have stated, next week we are celebrating Anguilla Day. Well, in fact, it will be held on the 1st of June, which is the Monday. And so we're all encouraging all persons to pay attention to the programs that will be advertised and promoted, and to come out to as many of the Anguilla Day activities as possible, and certainly to join us on Monday, 1st of June, at the Anguilla Day festivities at the James Brown Webster Park. I will ask the other elected members to make their presentations, and then we will open the floor for questions at that time. And so I'll ask the Honorable Mr. Jose Vanterpool to start us off.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Premier. Good afternoon to all those present in the room, to include the different media representatives, the IT staff, and a pleasant good afternoon to all Anguillians listening via the various means. Today, I give the update on behalf of the Ministry of Infrastructure, Communications, Utilities, Housing, IT, and E-Government Services. Firstly, I would like to report that last week I had the pleasure of attending the Amplify Summit on Thursday that was held in Miami. Now, this event would have brought together persons at a number of different levels as it relates to telecoms, including ministerial representatives, different telecoms companies, researchers, to talk about digital transformation, particularly as it relates to the Caribbean environment. In fact, the theme of the event was elevating the Caribbean's digital future. A few of the topics would have included going from connectivity to growth, shaping the Caribbean's digital future, building local talent, shaping policy and driving digital transformation throughout the region, scaling digital transformation in an AI era, as well as connectivity in crisis and resilience for the future. And particularly under this topic, one of the main focuses was rebuilding Jamaica after the devastation that was experienced via Hurricane Melissa, as well as AI in hospitality, as we acknowledge that the Caribbean is a tourism and hospitality destination, that AI and digital transformation will be a big part in shaping this area. Other ministerial representatives would have included the Premier of Nevis, Ms. Honorable Mark Brantley, as well as the Deputy Premier of St. Lucia. And there were several conversations that were held. And one thing that was clear coming out of this, the Caribbean has several advantages when it comes to given our small size and our resources. I think often we focus on the disadvantages, but given the technologies that levels the playing field, there are several opportunities available right now to help leapfrog us to the forefront. And I had some conversations with the head of the recently opened AI unit at the University of the West Indies. And so we're looking forward in the weeks to come to discuss how we can help position Anguilla as that northern star and the example of the region as to how digital transformation, AI, and everything can play out to not only our islands, but the region's resiliency. So more to come on that. The Premier would have reported that the .ai revenues continues to perform strongly, and I'm happy to both not only confirm this, but to report that April's revenue amounted to $35.8 million from the .ai revenues. So the revenues continue to perform strongly. For those who may not have remembered, as a reference point, the average revenue that we would have had last year was about $21 million per month. Last month, in March, was our peak hour highest revenue at $39 million. But even though this doesn't beat March, it's still very much above what we were anticipating at $35.8 million. On the topic of performance, I would like to speak to the performance of Bermuda Air. As promised at the previous press conference, I will be presenting an update on behalf of the Ministry as to Bermuda Air's performance. The substantive update as to the routes and how it performed will first be given to the House of Assembly, but I would like, given this occasion and seeing that this press conference takes place before the House of Assembly, to at least give a preliminary update. And I would like to report the following. Approximately 7,900 passengers would have traveled on Bermuda Air service between December 2025 and April 2026. Government's analysis indicates the following estimated economic value delivered to Anguilla. December 2025, we estimate around $1.04 million. These are all US figures, would have been the economic impact to Anguilla. January 2026, $2.34 million US dollars. February 2026, US $2.45 million. March 2026, US $2.77 million US dollars. April 2026, US $2.9 million. This brings us to a cumulative value over the period of December 2025 to April 2026 that amounts to approximately $11.5 million US dollars, with clear evidence of sustained month-over-month growth, because if you pay attention to the numbers I just gave, every month built and succeeded the month that preceded it. Following a route launch demonstrating that this route was a major success for Anguilla, as well as our recent tourism season, and very likely contributed to breaking record visitor arrivals month after month, as we have seen and previously reported. The Ministry is currently in discussions with Bermuda Air for the upcoming season, and we look forward to continued growth, success, and mutual benefit. And I don't want to preempt any questions, but I am sure that the question will come up in terms of the risk-sharing agreement for the seats. How much was government's contribution? In order to realize this $11.5 million, government's contribution was in the ballpark of $600,000. So in other words, for our $600,000 investment, we would have realized over that month period $11.5 million worth of visitor revenues. Moving on to the roads projects, beginning with South Hill to the Jeremiah Gums Highway. The sub-base preparation continues for the last section of the road. Underground utility works continues as well for the last section of the road. Pouring sections of the road surface and sidewalks continues. Estimated construction completion is June of 2026, next month. The relocation of the pole at the entrance of the road that needs to be moved for the entrance to be able to be fixed is expected to take place this week. The Sandy Hill Road. As we know, this road is basically complete. Fence work continues, site cleanup continues, road marking and sign installations are currently continuing to be planned, and the project completion is still slated for May of 2026. As it relates to the Valley Roads project, that being the Raphael T. Lake Road as well as Albert Lake Drive, consultations with the businesses continue. Bill of quantities are being prepared, and other elements of the invitation to bid documents will be sent forward to review by the procurement office this week. As it relates to the road surface rehabilitation program, Beston Consulting representatives were in Anguilla last week undertaking a comprehensive field assessment of the island's road network as part of the ongoing road rehabilitation program. They also would have met with Cabinet on last Wednesday. During their visit, the representatives from the Ministry Department would have met with a series of stakeholders beyond Cabinet to ensure that priority and critical roads were clearly identified for inclusion within the project. The site assessment was conducted over a structured 6-day period from Monday 11th to Saturday the 16th. Activities included drive-through evaluations covering approximately 6 to 12 kilometers of roadways, as well as visits to key facilities such as concrete and asphalt plants, and consultations with the various stakeholders. Technical work carried out during the week included detailed construction surveys, training sessions on road defects, focusing on causes as well as appropriate treatments, and the use of specialized equipment such as the bump integrator to assess road surface conditions. The team also undertook dynamic cone penetrometer, DCP, I'm not sure what penetrometer, testing to evaluate the structural integrity of the road subgrades, finalized testing locations, and completed both field testing as well as condition surveys. The assessment concluded with the final data collection activities and internal presentations by the Beston team. Over the next few weeks, what we can expect is that Beston Consulting will prepare and submit a comprehensive report outlining their findings, along with design recommendations for the most effective approach to road rehabilitation in Anguilla's context. This report will guide the government's next steps in delivering a safer, more resilient, and more efficient road network for Anguilla, along with a 10-year plan for continuous road maintenance to ensure that maintenance is not only scheduled, but undertaken in such a way that ensures value for money for the people of Anguilla. As it relates to the buildings update, the ministry has been actively engaged over the past week in finalizing submissions to the BCQS regarding office accommodations across government. These submissions represent a comprehensive and coordinated effort across all ministries and departments. Each entity was required to provide the detailed information outlining both their current as well as projected needs, specifically in relation to staffing levels, space requirements, and any special operational conditions. Preliminary submissions were completed late last month, and I'm pleased to report that final submissions were successfully concluded last week. We have now entered the next phase of the process. The ministry is awaiting the preparation of a consolidated report which will outline the functional program for the office accommodations. This report will provide a structural framework to guide how government office spaces will be designed as well as utilized as we move forward. Once completed, the report will be circulated to the relevant stakeholders for final review and approval. Following the report's approval, we will transition into the design phase, where these plans will begin to take physical form. We anticipate receiving this report by the end of June, and we remain committed to ensuring that government office spaces are modern, efficient, and responsive to the evolving needs of the public service. In terms of ongoing projects, the retrofit of the 5 Mile building, which is still focusing on fire services installation, the ICT installation of the security equipment. As it relates to the Royal Anguilla Police Force, the construction of the office spaces, the completion of which is scheduled for mid-June. Finishing works is ongoing, where the electrical and ICT systems are still being installed, as well as tiling, painting, and partitioning of the offices is still due to take place. At His Majesty's Prison, specifically the construction of the workshop there, this is expected to be completed in June 2026. They're still working on the superstructure. The walls and columns have been complete. The preparation of the roof construction is now in progress, and is scheduled to be poured on Friday, the 22nd of May. The Combined Services Building, the replacement of the HVAC system, the project is scheduled to be completed by 22nd May 2026. The morgue extension at Princess Alexandra Hospital, the bids have been evaluated and a report and recommendation sent to the procurement board for consideration. If approved, a contract will be prepared to support the commencement of the project. The Albina Lake Hodge Comprehensive School Technical Block, completion is still slated for August of 2026. There's been a recent pouring of part of the roof over the technical block. Preparation for the first floor slab over the agriculture block is in progress and will be poured shortly. And as of the 30th of April, the overall project progress is about 50% complete, with a targeted completion of August 2026. Project that is temporarily paused, the retrofit of the NBA building. The floor plans are currently being finalized for the Ministry of Home Affairs to occupy the second floor of the West Wing, the Ministry of Economic Development and the MEDIC to occupy the third floor. Contract works are in place as of December 2025. Awaiting relocation of sensitive materials from the building to commence the project. So once that's done, then we are free to proceed. And the estimated commencement of this development is in June 2026, so next month. Tenders that are upcoming to be issued. Construction of Zenada Haven Residential Facility. The tender is scheduled to be issued in June of 2026. The Princess Alexandria Hospital, the extension, the tender is also scheduled to be issued in June of 2026. The construction of the concrete roof at Maiku, the tender is scheduled to be issued in June of 2026. Department of Natural Resources, the construction of the abattoir. This is currently still being designed, so we don't have a tender date in mind at this moment, but we'll provide an update in a subsequent press release. And the sports developments, the Players Pavilion, Blowing Point Basketball Facility, ALHCS Sports Hub, and National Track. Those tenders are soon going to be coming out in subsequent releases as well. Airport development update. Last week, the team at the airport completed their last major pour with 26 trucks, representing 277 cubic yards of concrete, completing 34 apron panels in one single day. Although there are few small pours left and due to take place later this week, this was the last major pour that was scheduled for this phase of the project. As of Friday, 15th May, the apron expansion is 95% complete. The airport exit road construction is 95% complete. And over the next couple of weeks, line markings, final saw cuttings, sealing, and landscaping is expected to take place. The parking lot and exit roadway completion is expected for 20th May 2026. The signs, line painting, and landscaping is expected to be completed on 27th May 2026. The electrical and street lights are expected to also be completed on 27th May 2026. As it relates to the runway, final recommendations has been submitted to the procurement board for the runway construction as of last week. This week, we are expecting a response from the procurement board on the way forward. As it relates to a recent audit that was taken of the airport, a representative for Air Safety Support International, better known as ASE, along with TSA, are on island this week conducting an aviation security audit. The audit commenced this morning and will continue up until Friday of this week. The audit will focus on security training as well as certification, screening of baggage, as well as personnel and security equipment. As it relates to renewable energy, today I'm pleased to report a major step forward at the Princess Alexandria Hospital at its energy resilience project. The government has received the complete engineering submission, which means that the system is now fully designed and ready for implementation pending its final approval. The project will deliver a hospital-grade renewable energy system combining solar power, battery storage, and backup integration to ensure uninterrupted service at our main healthcare facility, as the Honorable would say, our only 24-hour healthcare facility. Importantly, the engineering team has strengthened the design significantly to increase the system to a 500 kilovolt hospital-grade standard at no additional cost to the government of Anguilla. This upgrade ensures that the hospital can meet current demand as well as expanded future needs, including new critical services such as expanded facilities and advanced medical equipment. The system is expected to generate over 400,000 kilowatt hours annually, reducing energy costs as well as improving resilience during outages. In simple terms, this project will protect healthcare delivery in Anguilla, ensuring that even during power disruptions, our hospital can continue to operate safely and reliably. We are now reviewing the submission, and once approved, the project will move into its implementation stage. That brings me to the end of my update from Maiku. And Premier, I'm not sure if we'll take questions at the end. So I'll hand over to the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Mr. Cardigan Connor.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Jose. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll give you an update on tourism, Sports, and my colleague, the Honorable Evans McNeil Rogers, will elaborate a bit more on health. It is a pleasure to join you today. As the Minister of Tourism, I'll give a report on the CHTA Marketplace, which took place in Antigua and Barbuda, May 12th to 15th. Anguilla proudly participated in the 44th Annual Caribbean Tourism Marketplace, held in Antigua and Barbuda, organized by the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association. The event is recognized as the Caribbean's premier tourism marketing and business development platform. Marketplace 44 brought together regional tourism suppliers, international tour operators and wholesalers, airlines and travel trade partners, media representatives, tourism stakeholders from key international source markets. The Anguilla delegation included myself as Minister of Tourism, Mrs. Chantel Richardson, Deputy Director of Tourism at the Anguilla Tourist Board, Mrs. Kendisha Hall-Prentice, the Chief Marketing Officer at the Anguilla Tourist Board, Mr. Will Fleming, President of the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association, and Mrs. Sharicia Lewis, the CEO of Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association. The Anguilla Tourist Board delegation participated in strategic business appointments, networking engagements, regional tourism discussions, trade, travel, and media meetings. The key objectives of Anguilla's participation included strengthening destination visibility, expanding trade and media relationships, increasing visitor arrivals, and enhancing destination partnerships. The CHTA Marketplace welcomed hundreds of delegates, tourism buyers, suppliers, and media representatives from across the Caribbean and major international markets. The event provided a valuable platform to showcase Anguilla's tourism product offerings, discuss emerging travel trends, and foster regional and international business collaboration. During the event, the Anguilla delegation held multiple pre-scheduled meetings with international tour operators, travel advisors, airline representatives, destination management companies, media representatives, and travel trade partners. Discussions focused on strengthening destination awareness, enhancing airlift and market access opportunities, expanding luxury and experiential travel partnerships, and positioning Anguilla for sustained tourism growth. Priority source markets discussed included United States, Canada, United Kingdom, and emerging Latin American markets. Participation at CHTA Marketplace formed part of the Anguilla Tourist Board's continued strategic effort to reinforce Anguilla's global tourism presence, strengthen and expand industry relationships, and support ongoing tourism development initiatives. The event also provided opportunities for regional dialogue on tourism resilience, sustainability, innovation, collaborative Caribbean marketing strategies. The Anguilla Tourist Board remains committed to leveraging regional and international tourism platforms to further strengthen Anguilla's position as a leading luxury Caribbean destination. As part of the CHTA, the Caribbean Travel Forum, which is a strategic tourism insight for Anguilla, was held, and our attendance at HTA Marketplace 2026 strategic tourism insights relating to Anguilla were presented. The Amadeus and CHTA Caribbean Travel Trends 2026 report highlighted an interestingly competitive Caribbean tourism sector where destinations must prioritize resilience, market diversification, premium value tourism, data-driven demand generation, and long-term sustainable growth. Anguilla continues to distinguish itself as one of the Caribbean's leading luxury tourism destinations, supported by its strong boutique luxury identity, exclusive destination appeal, high-value traveler profile, and personalized experiential tourism offerings. For Anguilla's luxury market positioning, the report identified Anguilla among the Caribbean's top luxury destinations with one of the region's highest premium luxury index score. Anguilla was 3.3, St. Bartholomew or St. Bart's was 3.1, Bermuda was 2.9. This reflects Anguilla's continued success in attracting affluent travelers seeking luxury accommodation, personalized experiences, longer stays, premium travel services, and authentic and exclusive experiences. Anguilla's luxury brand positioning remains one of the destination's strongest competitive advantages globally. For the mature affluent travel market, based on the mature African market, the report notes that Anguilla performs particularly strongly among the baby boomers, travelers aged between 46 and 65 and older. These travelers typically demonstrate higher visitor spending, longer lengths of stay, increased demands for wellness and luxury experiences, and preference for boutique resorts, villas, culinary, and authentic experiences. Key opportunities for Anguilla include strengthening the wellness tourism, culinary tourism, luxury villa experiences, concierge and experiential travel offerings, and long-stay seasonal programs. The report identified rapid growth in Latin America and Latin American travel demand to the Caribbean, particularly from Colombia, Peru, Argentina, Brazil, and Mexico. These markets are experiencing significant growth in premium and travel demand and high-value tourism. For Anguilla, this presents opportunities to diversify beyond traditional U.S. source markets, increase shoulder season demand, and attract affluent South American travelers, also expand our secondary source market presence. Continued focus will be needed on trade partnerships, luxury travel advisor engagement, multilingual marketing campaigns, and strategic airlift and connectivity development. Regarding the seasonality and year-round demand, the report highlights seasonality as a continued challenge across the Caribbean tourism industry. While peak season demand continues to grow, low season performance remains relatively stable. South American travelers were identified as an important segment for supporting the off-peak travel, the shoulder season visitation, and year-round tourism demand. Opportunities for Anguilla include targeted marketing initiatives focused on wellness tourism, culinary and festival experiences, luxury experiential travel, remote work and extended stay offerings. These initiatives can support increased occupancy during softer periods, higher on-island spending, and greater year-round tourism opportunities. For our strategic outlook for Anguilla, the report concluded that Anguilla remains exceptionally well positioned within the global luxury tourism marketplace, sustaining long-term competitiveness while require continued focus on strategic market diversification, airlift and connectivity expansion, year-round demand generation, experiential luxury tourism, and advanced data-driven marketing strategies. By leveraging its strong luxury brand, identify and strengthening emerging markets opportunities, Anguilla is well positioned to continue building tourism resilience and maintaining leadership within the Caribbean luxury tourism sector. During the month of May 2026, the Anguilla Tourist Board will advance several key strategic initiatives aimed at strengthening destination visibility, enhancing industry partnerships, driving visitor demand, and supporting the continued growth and competitiveness of Anguilla's tourism sector. These efforts include the execution of targeted marketing campaigns, participation in major industry engagements and trade events, strategic stakeholder collaborations, and the rollout of initiatives designed to further elevate the destination's global positioning and visitor experience. The Anguilla Tourist Board will continue its coordination and preparation for the upcoming Virtuosa Study Tour, summer destination marketing campaigns, international media and travel advisor familiarization visits, and regional and international tourism partnerships. The launch of Anguilla Tourist Board Summer Campaign, Taste, Feel, Live, Summer 2026. The Anguilla Tourist Board, ATB, will be launching this week its 2020 Summer Campaign under the theme, Taste, Feel, Live, designed to showcase the authentic experiences, luxury lifestyle, culture, cuisine, and immersive atmosphere that define Anguilla's experience. The campaign was strategically developed to drive summer travel demand, increase destination visibility across key source markets, encourage longer stays and repeat visitation, and position Anguilla as a premier luxury and experiential Caribbean destination. The Taste, Feel, and Live campaign will highlight Anguilla's world-class culinary scene, award-winning beaches, boutique luxury accommodation, vibrant cultural experiences, wellness and lifestyle offerings, and authentic island hospitality. The campaign is designed to emphasize experiential storytelling and emotional connection by encouraging visitors to taste Anguilla's luxury excellence, feel the warmth and tranquility of the destination, and live the authentic Anguillan lifestyle. I'll quickly change to sports, and I'll start with congratulations to Jamar Hamilton on being drafted by the Antigua and Barbuda Falcons franchise in the 2026 Premier Cricket League, and that is the 2020 tournament. And I think this is on the backdrop of Anguilla's performance last year when they won in Antigua in the Leeward Islands tournament, but also Jamar was very successful yet again this year in the 4-day tournament, so we wish him all the best. Jaquan Samuels won the state high jump championship at Manual High School in New Mexico, United States of America. He was one of 2 young athletes who received financial support through the Top Hill basketball camp. His jump of 2.06 meters set a new Anguillan high jump record. Jaquan is also scheduled to represent Anguilla at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Scotland, starting at the end of July. So again, we wish him congratulations to him and wish him all the best. For cricket, the Masters cricket team is scheduled to leave Anguilla on Wednesday to compete in the Leeward Islands Masters cricket tournament. That's from the 22nd to the 26th of May. And last week, the Department of Sports hosted a 5-day baseball clinic at the Coronation Park. Coaches from the United States of America, they led the training sessions and were very impressed by our young baseballers. They also expressed interest in continuing to work with our local coaches. So we gladly accept that. The Class B boat race yesterday, that was postponed from the 2nd of March, which was around the island race for the Class B on the birthday of the Father of the Nation. The race was won by the Upsetter. Second was the F5 Tornado. Third was Kedro Pride. Fourth was the Storm. And Legal Rights came in 5th. Also want to say congratulations to Kenny, Thomas, and Cheryl, who were part of the Night Shadow team that competed in Europe. Again, with the yacht racing, say congratulations again to them. And there will be a yachting festival later, in fact later this month, early next month, that will take place here in Anguilla. So congratulations to those 3. And Thomas and Kenny are members of the Upsetter and also of the Light and Peace. Tomorrow at 5 o'clock, there's a public consultation on the Draft Sports Act 2026. That starts at 5 p.m. at the Athlete Noraldo Harrigan Building here in the Valley. So we're asking all sporting enthusiasts to come out, to either come out or join online as we host this program. And just before I hand over to my honorable colleague, to say that the funds from this Malcolm Marshall Cancer fundraiser, we were able to present $10,000 to the family of one of your colleagues. I'm now referring to the press that are here, to Pickering, and naturally Mrs. Pickering was very appreciative of that. There is a further $37,000 that would be distributed between the Cancer Foundation, Cancer Association, and Anguilla Youth Cricket. That presentation will be made sometime later this week, and the press would be invited to attend. You know, and again, as I said, sport means a lot to us. Some people might just consider it as playtime, but it really embraces people from far and wide. And for me personally, to have been a personal friend and colleague of Malcolm Marshall, the idea too is that throughout the Caribbean, we look to raise funds or awareness to the cancers that we have, but also raise funds in order to help those who are stricken by the cancer. So, yeah, just a couple of updates that I want to go into health. I won't give everything to the Honorable Evans Bentley Rogers. There's a bedside 360 pilot program which was launched today. The ministry launched the bedside 360 pilot program at the Princess Alexandra Hospital with a total of 9 persons. The new bedside assistants provide non-clinical support, so hygiene, mobility, comfort, and social engagement, allowing nurses to focus on the clinical care. This is an important step towards improving the patient's experience and quality of supportive care. The Hearts program, ESCO, well received and was well attended. As part of the ministry's ongoing focus on non-communicable diseases, the Measure It in May campaign continues under the Hearts program. A major highlight was the Hearts Health Expo held on May 15th at the Central Polyclinic, where members of the primary healthcare team provided free screening, health education, and lifestyle guidance. Community outreach through churches, workplaces, and media platforms will continue throughout the month to promote cardiovascular health and early detection of hypertension. The CARE Certificate program ends today. 15 participants completed the CARE Certificate program today. Anguilla now joins other UK overseas territories in marking this achievement in collaboration with the UK Health Security Agency. The program, adopted from the UK and launched in February 2026, supports the development of all junior care roles across government, including social development and health services. This marks the successful completion of our first group of trained care support staff. And the Hypertension and Diabetes Project, Med Access and pre-registration, and Minister Rogers will elaborate more on this. The Ministry of Health has commenced pre-registration for donor-funded Med Access pilot project, which aims to provide medication support for uninsured persons living with hypertension and/or diabetes. This pre-registration process is intended to gather information to assist with planning and implementation of the project. Eligible persons are encouraged to visit the Ministry of Health, Tourism and Sports between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. to complete the registration form. Applicants are asked to bring a valid national ID and details of their prescribed medications. For international health and the international health scene, hantavirus, the Andre virus cluster, based on recent CARFO risk assessments, the risk to the Caribbean remains low. Anguilla has no known epidemiological links to the outbreak and is not among the countries identified for WHO passenger follow-up activities. Epidemic and Ebola disease is in the Democratic Republic of Congo, updated to a public health emergency of international concern, PHEIC. The Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo, a public health emergency international concern. WHO has designated the outbreak a public health emergency of international concern. The declaration reflects the need for enhanced international coordination and response efforts. There is currently no indication of a global pandemic. And the norovirus outbreak on the Caribbean Princess, the outbreak affecting passengers and crew aboard the Caribbean Princess has been reported. Public health authorities have confirmed that there is no broader threat to the Caribbean region or regional cruise operations at this time. The Ministry of Health continues to monitor these situations closely in collaboration with regional and international public health partners and will provide updates as necessary. With that, I say thank you, and I pass over to the Honorable Evans McMinn Rogers.
Thank you very much, Minister. A pleasant good afternoon to you all who are here this afternoon and to those who are listening and viewing via the various media methods. Just to continue on from where the Minister left off, to congratulate all of the individuals at the Department of Healthcare Services who would have been instrumental in implementing the Bedside 360 pilot program. It's a very important and critical area in which a lot of attention needs to be placed. As we know, some folks think that healthcare is 80% psychological and 20% medicine. And as a result of that, the care, the concern, and the attention that is given to patients is always high on the priority list. So again, you know, I applaud them for that. It is just another step in improving the quality of healthcare services and delivery, so to speak. Nurses, physicians, and allied health professionals, you know, it's not one patient they're dealing with, you know, but at the same time, every patient is important and we have to pay them the attention. So to have the Bedside 360 pilot program would assist in the needs and attention that the patients need. The heart program, as the Minister said, the Heart Program Expo, it was a wonderful event last Friday at the Valley Polyclinic. The turnout was great. The only criticism, or I should say concern, that I received from the general public is that there were a number of areas that were there that they didn't have the time to get around to them. And similar to the Agrofest, it was the week before, they need to have these sort of programs, not just one day, but to have them over a period of time. I assured the individuals who would have made those concerns known to me that we do intend to go from district to district, village to village, in terms of getting the message and providing these checks for the non-communicable diseases on an ongoing basis, you know, whether it's quarterly or, you know, as often as possible. Again, it's going to depend upon the human resource capacity that we will have, you know, to have the professionals out there. The reason why we would have concentrated and focused last Friday, basically at the Valley Polyclinic, is the fact that this month is Nurses Month, and the nurses, you know, focus specifically on the non-communicable diseases, and you know, moving it forward, so they focus everything there and so on. But we do intend to expand it, and we do intend to have it much more frequently, not only for Nurses Month, but to have it on a rotating basis, so to speak. I would also want to congratulate them, for the work that they have been doing. We would have had a very interesting program last Tuesday. They would have outlined, all the activities for this month, and they will continue to work hard, to gain not only the interest and appreciation of the public and the public for the work that they do, but also, to be part and parcel of the improving the quality of healthcare and its services throughout Anguilla, because that's our mission, to be able to offer services, improve services, and expansion of these services throughout. I would also like to take this opportunity to, again, go on record to thank the shops. Last week, Thursday, the week before, I think it was May 7th, I believe, Premier, we were at the Welch's Polyclinic, where there was a ribbon-cutting ceremony with respect to the mammography equipment and ultrasonography that would be services that will be offered at the Welch's Polyclinic going forward. GE equipment, the shops would have provided this equipment. They would have paid for it in full. It has been installed, and as we speak, there is a radiographer and a registered nurse who was in the Dominican Republic at doing some training sessions at Medico Express. This is a facility, an institution down there that has all GE equipment, and basically, the latest equipment that GE has on display or in use is at that particular facility in the Caribbean. And we have, as I said, a radiographer as well as a registered nurse down there participating in a week training and an acquaintance with respect to the modern equipment that we have here as such. There will also be an in-house training after those two individuals are back in Anguilla. It is important that GE train the operators, adequately so that they can maximize the equipment with all the services it provides, and also, will minimize the downtime, what we call downtime, going forward. So we are moving along in that direction, and that week training will do a whole lot, will give us a boost in terms of the quality of the mammography services that the Princess Alexandra Hospital and by extension the government of Anguilla would be providing. Also to let the general public know, because I've spoken about this on a number of occasions here on these press conferences, that the second operating theater that we are presently engaged in upgrading, the final container is actually on site. Customs, I'm sure, would sometime this week would be going to open up the container, and we are hoping by the end of this week that we'll have the biomedical engineers in to be able to install the laminar flow and the ceiling and the walls and so on and so forth that is absolutely necessary, so that we'll have that upgraded and ready for use. We intend to use it primarily for orthopedic services and ophthalmology services, because there is a need and a shortage of services that are provided on Anguilla. We have visiting specialists that come in from time to time, and quite a number of orthopedic cases, they've been flown out, and seem to be increasing and with the increase of vehicular accident and a number of accidents and a number of other orthopedic services. Ophthalmology, there's no doubt that a number of Anguillians, almost on a daily basis go across the same water to get certain ophthalmology services done and so on and so forth. And we are looking to bring that in-house, and also to be able to screen our children going to school. I'm sure that there are a number of children who really and truly may need glasses and probably be sitting in the back of the class. I would know quite a bit about the use of the eyes with all of the modern technologies and so on and so forth, So the professionals would be on island and be able to deliver those sort of services to our children and to a number of Anguillians as well. We have a number of diabetics who would need a number of different procedures in ophthalmology, so we'll have it available in Anguilla as opposed to, let's say, the vast majority going to St. Martin. Of course, you can't stop people from deciding exactly what they want to do, but at least, you know, you have the services here, right, on Anguilla. Another area that I would want to touch, because sometimes, you know, individuals listen to us on these press conferences and think that you're only focusing on physical improvements and so on and so forth. But in healthcare, we all know, you know, that human touch, it's nothing like it. And the whole psychological approach to patients and to their families, particularly in Anguilla, is of paramount importance. As such, I would have mentioned in previous press conferences about soft skills training. You know, pleased to say that the Anguilla Community College, in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and the PS for public administration and the training aspect of the government, of this government, because we focus on training, and training our people in particular going forward. That the training program, soft skills training program for all of the healthcare workers, I think it's approximately 258 to 265 employees, every single level will be involved in this training. And this training, the first cohort, will start on June the 2nd. It will go up until August the 25th. There would be a break in there, and between the second cohort would start on January and will end up in March. So this training program, basically, it's the soft skills. It's dealing with how you approach and how you deal with patients, how you deal with their families, communication skills, and all of those sort of things. There are a number of local experts who would be delivering certain areas in this particular program. There were also, I think, one or two individuals from Shell, and Shell stands for the School of Higher Education Limits, and that's an accredited institution out of Trinidad. We'll have a number of invigilators, depending upon the topics that are being discussed, that will come in and share their views and conduct some of the training in, with regards to these programs. So we are working on that, not only the physical structures, not only the equipment and instrumentation for healthcare services, but also the personal touch. You know, we are working on that to move the quality of healthcare forward. We always, in these press conferences, I've reiterated time and time again about the difficulties of, you know, attracting, recruiting and retaining, you know, healthcare professionals. It's not unique to Anguilla, it's all over the world, you know, they move freely around. We are hoping that on June the 1st, we'll have an additional emergency medical technician to the staff. We are still working with respect to that, to adding much more to it. On June the 10th, we're going to have an addition of a psychiatric aide to the staff over there. On June the 26th, we're adding another dental assistant to the folks in the dental unit. On June the 26th, we expect to have the services of a psychiatrist, you know, on staff, on island, you know, to help with our mentally challenged and to really and truly have a one-on-one and a personal touch in terms of treatment with them, as opposed to the Zoom and all the other things that are taking place at the moment, to have someone on island to see the patients, you know, one-on-one. We also, on July the 1st, we intend to add a medical technologist to the group over there as well. On July the 6th, we intend to have an additional radiographer there as well. On June the 24th, we intend to have a nephrology nurse added to the staff. July the 1st, we intend to have another pharmacist that will be added to the staff at the Princess Alexandra Hospital. So we're working our way, you know, towards getting the required human resources and to make sure that we are not short-staffed, so to speak, when we have all of these improvements that are taking place. You know, so at the end of the day, again, without the human resources and the touch, the human touch, you know, in healthcare services, along with the physical institutions, and along with improving the quality of our equipment and instrumentation, these things need to be put in place. We also, by the third week in June, we intend to have a session whereby, you know, the improvement to the dental services will be upgraded equipment. We intend to set up a dental suite whereby it can be used on a daily basis, but also for visiting specialists to come in and do a number of much more complex and complicated cases, including bones and other oral problems that you will have going forward. We are also, at the same time, we have put together a transformational committee for health. They are looking at the legislation for the health authority, the legislation that is applicable now to the Department of Health Services, looking at where synergies and the best fit, you know, for the healthcare services here in Anguilla going forward. Of course, it's not a one-size-fit-all for us here because we are unique in the sense that we have low numbers, but at the same time, we experience all of the medical matrices and the problems that are out there. Not just because we are small, it means we're restricted in terms of healthcare challenges, but we have all of the challenges that are experienced anywhere in the world. But we'll have to, you know, come up with a tailor-made plan in order to be able to deal with it going forward. In a nutshell, that is what I have to update for today.
Thank you very much. And before I open the floor for questions, I just want to remind the persons that these updates are provided by the ministers of government based on current events, what's happening in the respective ministries. And if there are questions that arise that do not come out of today's updates and are questions that refer to matters some time past for which the ministers may not have information on hand, then those questions will be taken down and answered at the next press conference. So with that being said, I'd like to open the floor for questions from the media.
Good afternoon, Niamke Brooks from Radio Anguilla.
Good afternoon.
In relation to Madam Premier, in relation to the Constitution, I know you would have requested the committee to come up with a draft, and I guess you would have given some insight into what you want to see. What major changes do we anticipate? I think I asked this before, but just a refresher of what can we expect from this Constitution?
Okay, right. So one of the points that I can raise is, for instance, we are looking at the separation between the Attorney General's position and the Director of Public Prosecutions. In many other countries, you have a DPP office that deals solely with criminal matters. And then you have the Attorney General's aspect that deals with civil. Right now, we deal with both civil and criminal together. And so we want to separate the two. That would have been in the last draft Constitution. And let me also say that there was a significant amount of work that would have taken place with the 2015 to 2020 Constitution. And a number of the members who are on the board now were members of that Constitution. So Mr. Stanley Reed, who is the chair of the Constitutional Committee, would have been a member then, as well as Mrs. Chanel Petty-Barrett, who is the deputy chair. And so you will see, because so much work had been done before, and that work had been based on not just previous constitutions, but also speaking with the communities in terms of identifying what the communities want to see, what Anguillans want to see in the Constitution. This existing committee will have had a broad general framework in terms of putting together a constitution that would have showcased a greater internal self-government, would have separated the functions of the AG and the DPP, for instance, would have addressed and looked at whether or not Anguillians ought to who are overseas or diaspora are to be able to vote, etc. And so all of that would be part of a draft. I have not seen it. I have not had any one-on-one conversations in terms of any recent updates, but I anticipate that those are the types of matters that will come up that will go out to public consultation. And so everything that is in the draft will go to consultation for the public to weigh in and give an opinion on.
I guess this next question would be more in terms of electoral reform and the boundary districts,
Okay,
the district boundaries. I know there have been talks in the past about having more districts, dividing District 3 and 4 possibly into smaller districts. Any thought being given to that at this time?
Yeah, so based on previous reports that would have come out post-election, I think in 2015 and again in 2020, there were recommendations in terms of the redistricting of boundary lines, etc. But that comes with the population. So the census was only completed, I think, some months ago. So the first thing we have to do is obtain the census, and then we look at what the voters list is going to look like. So for instance, if coming out of the constitutional reform, the people of Anguilla decide that the status quo remains, then you move forward with the establishment of the Electoral Boundaries Commission. If it is that they decide, okay, you know what, we want to open it in terms of voting to allow the diaspora, then when you redo the district lines, it has to be based on the population size in each area, because you want to make sure that they're equal sizing. So right now we know that there's not equal size in terms of districts across the island, and the whole idea is to have a more equal distribution of persons. And the only way you get the equal distribution is based on the registration of persons and the population size in each district. So that's ongoing. So that would be the next step after the people of Anguilla make a decision as to how they would like to see the voters list.
Yes. Next question is in relation to this building. The opposition this morning on their program would have referenced a possible executive council minute that has been redacted and not published in relation to discussions about payment for this building. What can you share about the status of this building at this time?
Yeah, well, I haven't listened to what the opposition have said, so I can't answer in terms of whatever it is they're saying. I'm not sure. As you know, the issue as to the ownership of this building and the state of it has been something that's been ongoing since about 2016. It went through all of the opposition members were former ministers of government, former members of government between 2020 and 2025. So I think they as well would know exactly what the status is. The question was asked in the House of Assembly in recent times. The last House of Assembly, what is the status? And they have given a wholesome response in relation to that. So I would invite persons to go back and to listen to what was said, but to summarize, the status of the building has not changed from the days when the opposition was sitting. So the status remains the same.
Okay. You would have mentioned your responses to the questions in the House. And I would have particularly taken note of a question in terms of the money being put aside, the rental money, in case there's a decision to pay someone. And prior, in all announcements, you and even the former premier would have mentioned that the money was in escrow. You know, that would be a separate entity, right? But you would have said that money is being held by government and not in an escrow account. I wonder if it was a move of the money or
no.
Or
what I had said is, if and when this property is there's a determination and government intends to acquire it by whatever means, the monies should go into escrow in terms of the acquisition, if until such time as the ownership has been resolved. In terms of the monthly rentals, at the time that I was having a conversation, we were not informed as to the status of the lease agreement and the sublease agreement. So this building was originally the subject of a lease agreement between, I can't remember which entity, and the receiver. So the receiver had a lease agreement, and the government of Anguilla had a sublease agreement. So shortly after we came into office, we were found out that the lease agreement had expired, and so there could be no sublease under a head lease that has expired.
Yes.
And so I don't want to say anything more at this point in time, but suffice it to say that has created, and that's really the difference in terms of what I will say prior to having that information and subsequent to that.
Yes. Can you share as to how much money is currently put aside that for the rent of the building or the lease, although we aren't paying anyone right now?
Right. So the lease agreement expired,
Yes.
and so there would have been no obligation to pay the receiver, because the receiver legally, if you don't have the right to lease, you don't have the right to sublease.
Yes. So we
So
without.
I don't want to go into any. It's a legal, right? It's a legal matter.
I
So I
got
don't
you.
want to go into any further.
Yes. Mr. Vanderpool, you would have mentioned that around 7,900 persons would have traveled on Bermuda Air, and that would have given Anguilla an economic value of $11.5 million, right? And the government would have paid $600,000 US, right, to the airline. How did that analysis come about to the 11.5 million?
Okay, thank you for the question. And something that I didn't clarify earlier, that 600,000 is not only inclusive of the risk-sharing agreement in relation to the seats that were unsellable, but it also includes the marketing that we would have put forward for the various routes. So in terms of how you come to the calculation of economic impact, it takes into consideration a few things that you're able to get from the airline analysis. That includes how long the travelers are on island, and we were able to see that given the routes that travelers actually extended their stay, so it was an average stay of about 8 to 9 days per traveler. It also takes into account the average daily spend per traveler, and there's ways to take out, you can get this from either the hoteliers, the airlines, but we've also excluded the accommodation stays, and all of this will be reflected in the overall report. So it's not to say that that 11.5 million is inclusive of money going to the accommodation, or we would have removed that data in terms of overall economic impact. So based on the length of stay, the number of passengers staying, and the average daily spend per passenger, you're able to project what the economic impact would be. I know that at the beginning and at the launch of this, we would have given some projected return on investments that we wanted to get back. At the time, I didn't disclose the figures government was going to spend because, one, it wasn't fixed at that point in time, and two, this was ahead of attending Routes 2026, where we are going to negotiate with other airlines, so we didn't want to give any leverage. But now that those negotiations and discussions have been complete, I can divulge that information. But the same way that we went about creating those potential projections and models is the same way now that you have the actual data, you can go back and actually say, okay, these are how many people who actually came through, this is the number that came through which month, this is how much you gave up, this is how long they stayed, average daily spend, overall economic impact. So that's how you go about modeling the actual impact.
Okay. In relation to the 5 Mile building, a number of government departments are now located there.
Yes.
What is the total, the rental fee that we are paying?
The rental fee for the 5 Mile building is in the 50s. I did see some misinformation going around on social media saying that we're spending upwards of $100,000 per month, which is not true. While I don't have the exact figure on hand, it's in the realm of $55,000 to $58,000 per month
EC?
in rental, EC figures.
Okay.
Just a follow-up on that. Is that per unit or for the building itself?
That's for the entire building. That's the total rental cost for the entire building.
Mr. Vanderpool, I am to ask you, so you mentioned that the government intends to occupy some other spaces in this building, this present building here?
Yes, that's correct.
Who are you negotiating with as relates to renovating somebody else's property?
Well, I do believe that the Premier would have given a comprehensive update in relation to the initial questions that were asked, and as the Premier would have indicated, this is an ongoing legal matter.
That's the point. So if it's an ongoing legal matter, why are you renovating somebody else's property without their consent?
Yeah, so.
That's the question.
Yeah, Mr. Richardson, you would
Yes.
appreciate that we are occupying the building now,
Yes.
right? We have been in occupation of the building by
Yes.
whatever means that took place. There are 3 additional floors that are unoccupied, and the government of Anguilla has decided to occupy that. When the determination is made as to the ultimate owner of the property, once that exercise is completed, then that discussion is going to take place in terms of compensation. So I assure you that there's no intention to undermine or prevent anybody from receiving whatever it is that they deserve, which irrespective as to the government of Anguilla occupying those units today. And so if it is that we are in occupation of this building, we have been since after Hurricane Irma. There are 3 floors that are unoccupied. I think it would be difficult to say that we are not to occupy because there's an ongoing question as to ownership of the building that pre-existed this administration. What we're simply doing is we're utilizing the space so as to avoid paying additional rent in other premises. If we don't use the property here, then we'll pay rent somewhere else to be able to provide space for our public servants.
Well, there was an owner prior to
There is a
2020.
registered owner, right? And so that will be dealt with.
Okay. Okay, still to you, Mr. Vanderpool. Could you tell us what is the position regarding the Watkin Hodge building, where Anglic is concerned, the Caracas Bay building?
Well, what I will say as it relates to that is, as you can see if you visit Anglic's Facebook page, they would have recently announced that they have a new CEO in place who is now on island. And there are a number of matters that seemed to have been waiting until the CEO came in to provide further direction. I myself will be meeting the CEO for the first time tomorrow, and that is a point of discussion that I do plan on raising with him. But at this time, I would find it more responsible to engage that conversation first, as well as speak with the board following that before giving a comprehensive response as to Anglic's direction.
Okay. Madam Premier, you did not mention anything relating to Social Security.
That's correct.
So I am wondering if I would be out of place now if I can ask you a question as Minister of Finance, who's also responsible for Social Security.
That's correct.
Prior to coming to office in 2025, there were a number of issues that the Social Security staff have been plagued with over the many years. I am to ask you whether or not any of these matters have been resolved. There was a long list of concerns that the staff had.
Right.
And top of the list was the director's position. So I am to ask, was any changes done or anything had been done since you took over the role as
Right.
Premier
So
and responsible for Social
you
Security?
used to be a director on Social Security, Mr. Richardson, at some point in time?
No, I'm just an employee.
You were just an employee?
Yes.
Oh, okay. But you would be aware that the minister, the respective minister, appoints the board, and then the board carries out the functions in terms of the day-to-day affairs of Social Security, subject to the role of the director. In this case, a board has been appointed, a board was appointed. There was some delay. You may remember that under the Social Security Act, the governor had the right to appoint the director. And coming into office in 2025, February of last year, we found that there was a disconnect because I had taken a position that the appointment is done subject to the minister and the board doing the work to appoint the director. And the governor had a different opinion. And that is because of the wording of the act. So, the interpretation of it was looked at in 2 different ways. I would have asked in July of last year that the Attorney General's chambers amend the act so as to avoid the disconnect in terms of the way in which we were looking at it in different ways. That amendment was completed in March of this year. And so we took it to the House of Assembly. And because there was a disconnect, and this is in particular in relation to the director's position, I would not have necessarily been fond of the idea of moving forward with that discrepancy before the act was passed. The amendment was passed in March of this year. So the amendment was passed, and the board would have had the ability to make certain decisions, etc. But I can tell you that what this administration has done has been to meet with various boards from time to time in order to get updates as to the progress of matters, etc. Because certainly, of course, as ministers, we are not involved in the day-to-day affairs of the board and what the board is doing on a daily basis. So I do intend to meet with the board this week, actually, to just get an update in terms of how things are progressing and see whether there's any assistance required from me as the minister who have appointed that board. So at some point I'll be able to, after the meeting, I'll be able to update further.
Thank you. Just one question from Minister Rogers. You mentioned about the pharmacy at a hospital. It relates to having additional staff there. I think I believe I heard you mention that towards the additional pharmacists at the hospital. But as far as my memory serves me, the pharmacy at the hospital is closed. There's no pharmacy operating at the hospital.
Well, when I say that at the hospital, I'm talking about the health service in general. The hospital, the main pharmacy is at the Valley Clinic, and there's a small pharmacy at PAH for inpatients and so on. So then when I said that at the hospital, basically
No.
it is the main pharmacist at the
I got the impression, and maybe members of the public would have gotten the impression that there's a pharmacy in operation at the Princess Alexandra Hospital.
Yeah, well, let me clarify that, because the general public would realize by now. Let me clarify that, because the general public would realize by now that the pharmacy the main pharmacy at the Valley Polyclinic is not open, after 5 o'clock or 4:30, so to speak. And if you're taken to the hospital and you need, you need medication, if you're hospitalized, there's medication there, and that pharmacy is closed, so there must be some sort of medication at the hospital. And if you go to the emergency room and you need medication, you will get the prescription partially filled until the next day when you can go to the pharmacy, the main pharmacy at the thing. So, in essence, if there was any misunderstanding or ambiguity with respect to that, all it is that the main pharmacy for the Department of Health Services is at the Valley Polyclinic, and that is where the additional pharmacies will be. It's just one for now, but in essence, I think there is vacancies for 1 or 2 more. It's difficult to recruit them because of pay scales and all other things, but we are working towards that. So I would hope that anyone who might have been confused or led into believing that there's a pharmacy up there, I apologize for that.
I think in your absence, I had direct a question to the Minister of Health, Mr. Connor, and he mentioned about the morgue at a hospital. And I am not sure what is the position regarding whether the morgue is in operation now, or when the cases that require autopsies, whether or not the bodies will still have to be taken to the private funeral homes. I'm not sure. What's the position with that?
Yeah, the morgue is in operation now. However, we have limited capacity.
Say again?
Limited capacity at the moment. There are freezers for just about four bodies. At times, you have a lot more than 4 bodies that need autopsies and so on. So when the need arises, they'll go to the funeral homes, because prior to the morgue being open, we used to do autopsies here.
Yes.
On island, So that is still there until, there's an increase, because there's a 12 capacity freezer. The minister mentioned about some additions and so on to the morgue in his presentation on the pool. It is in relation to that, per se. So you'll build a small addition on to accommodate that increased capacity of the freezers and so on.
My last question would be either to you, Mr. Rogers, or Mr. Connor. We know for quite a while now, persons have to be flown out of Anguilla and I think somebody mentioned accidents and what have you.
I did.
Okay. Now, I would want to know from you all, what are some of the cases that prompts the government to have to send people overseas. I know that if there's an accident and somebody has to be flown out, we know that that person gone out because of an accident. Persons go out for several reasons. So I am to ask, what are some of the causes or the reasons why these folks have to be flown out on a regular basis?
Well, let me be clear.
Yes, sir.
That the complexities of injuries that you would receive from an accident, an auto accident, or an accident, on a construction site or anywhere, accidents. They have different levels of complexities. I mentioned during my update that the second theater we're looking at doing orthopedics and ophthalmology. We do not have a resident orthopedic surgeon on island. So just giving an example, if you have a collision, a vehicular collision, or into a pole or wall or something like that, and the severity of the orthopedic work services that are needed, they're not on island. So in a case like that, you stabilize and you will send out. So in terms of what are the cases, they can vary. It depends upon the complexities of it and depend upon the ability that we have on island. Now, there are having an orthopedic surgeon on in-house. I'm just using this as an example. Okay, in-house. It does not necessarily mean that they would be able to solve all of the issues relating to the orthopedic injuries, but the vast majority of them, can be dealt with in-house. That's it. Because we are never going to reach to a stage where any sort of medical challenges that you will have all of the required services and expertise, on island to do that. In the United States, there are folks who have flown from Florida to New York, they've flown to Minnesota, and so on and so forth. In the U.S. Virgin Islands, people have flown to Puerto Rico, flown to Miami. From St. Martin, they go to Curacao, or they go to Aruba for certain, conditions, or Colombia, and so on and so forth. So, in terms of services, there's no one state, one country that provides that sort of service. In Trinidad, for example, you got specialists that are flown in there. In Jamaica, you got specialists that come in from different places and so on and so forth in order to do things. So what we are one of the things that we are trying to achieve here, and a lot of folks in various media methods would want to criticize and say, well, hey, healthcare is not just about buildings, not just about equipment. But the fact of the matter is that if you have the facilities, then it is, in some cases, it is much easier to attract or to bring in a visiting specialist than to send the patient out. So all of those things, are working in tandem to be able to reduce, because you can't eliminate, to reduce the amount of medevacs that are out of Anguilla.
You see, Mr. Rogers, what I'm really trying to get at here is just last week you mentioned about the health fair that they had at the Central Polyclinic.
Yeah.
Now, person would have gone there, and I believe from the survey, you would have found out that persons in Anguilla are suffering from many different illnesses and diseases. And the question here now...
A variety of them.
Right. The question here now, when that data is compiled, what would the government do, or what could be done in eliminating some of these causes? It could be lifestyle, what we eat.
That's one.
What we drink.
That's one.
And the question is, what is the government doing? Because let's take, for instance, if certain foods are dangerous to our health, we can only eat what's being provided. So if it don't come in on tropical, then we can't eat it, because we can't go Miami and get it so easy, except we go overseas and get it. So some of the foods that we're eating are causing problems for us, because you will hear that from the nurses all the time.
Oh.
So then, can the government ban some of these things from coming in?
Well,
including the magic.
If you ban some of the things,
hold on. Yeah. Including the magic alcohol, to a certain extent.
Okay.
Yeah, the government should help them who can help themselves, if that's the case. Food and drinks.
You finished? You leave out tobacco?
No, I don't smoke it here, even tobacco here.
Oh.
So I'm just wondering if the government could assist the people, because some people just drinking themselves to death, eating themselves to death, and they're doing that because that's all they have to consume.
Well, since you're an investigative journalist, I would like you to question, do you think that banning cigarettes and alcohol and certain types of food would reduce or would prevent some of those diseases? And I'll go a little further.
Yes, sir.
At the end of the day, you realize that there's been a move to promote, local agricultural products and consumption.
Right.
Okay, I don't want to get into the politics of where an athletic stadium should be placed and all of that sort of stuff. All I'm saying is that at the end of the day, we have a personal responsibility, right, to be able to govern ourselves, irrespective of what is provided. I go back to your question. You don't drink alcohol. That's a choice that you make, irrespective of whether it's on the shelves or whether it's here in this conference room. You have to decide, not the government. So I want to say that provision of X, Y, and Z does not mean consumption of it. Now, you mentioned about tropical and so on. We have always been bringing food in one way or another. When we grew up, your father and mother used to have the ground, you had to be in it, I had to be in it, and so on and so forth. The children of today, the ages where we were involved, we had to pick wood and do everything else, potatoes and you name it. They're not there. So this is a different time in our development. How do we address it? By, if government decide, well, this can't come in or that can't come in, and a particular, or reduce it, does that solve the problem? Would that be creating an issue where hunger is another issue to deal with? Because there are some diseases that develop from the lack of foods as well, you know.
I had a number of discussions with persons from overseas, especially from the UK, and they have been concerned with, and they made mention to, take for example, the Coke, the can of Coke that we use here in Anguilla. They said in the United Kingdom that size is not being sold in England. They use smaller size cans of Coke, smaller size cans of Sprites, and Diet Cokes and these things. So I'm just asking.
Yeah, volumes could be the same thing, irrespective of the size. If you have one that is 10 mils and you have two that is 5 mils, you can add up to the same thing. It's a matter of choice, as I said. If you want to drink one, you drink one. If you want to drink two, you drink two. If you want to complete a big one, it's the same thing with Sprite and Coke and the various bottles, the various sizes of them, and so on. Again, it comes back to a personal choice, so to speak. That's the way I look at it. And having these things available does not mean that you have to go and purchase them. You can make sugar and water and get some lime. You know about that. I know about that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you.
Lloyd Gums, Lloyd's Live. Back to you, Mr. Rogers. You made reference to a psychiatrist at a hospital. Is it a visiting psychiatrist or a permanent psychiatrist?
Psychiatrist on island.
On island?
Yeah.
As in permanent?
Yes.
Okay.
Will be based here.
All right, fine. Mr. Connor, I don't know if it slipped your memory, but we're going to have to congratulate the Anguilla Juniors golfers, more so Magda and Jamai, for... Right. You want to finish it?
Well, I wasn't here, unfortunately. As I said to you at the start of the program, I didn't get a report from Richard to give out the score. But pleased to say, when given the opportunity, we show that our youngsters have got the ability to compete. Though it's St. Martin's has been playing for a number of years. They've got a program, I think, of over 100 plus youngsters in their program. We're very limited in our program for a couple of reasons, but the fact is that our youngsters did very well against the St. Martin's. So I must say congratulations, obviously, to the youngsters themselves, but also to the program. It's interesting how We quite often play too much politics in certain things, but whenever it comes to the development of our youth, politics should not be an issue. But I want to say thank you to Richard Phillips at Aurora, because he goes out personally of a weekend with Magda and Jefferson, Jemai, and the likes. The idea is that our youngsters are given the opportunity to play the game on Anguillan soil, land that was owned by Anguillians. And I think that previous governments have not done enough to facilitate the game. We as a government, we will do the best that we can to make sure that there are programs in place. And so again, we will continue to do that. And again, with the land that's available, that government is pursuing for the track, we'll also look to have a driving range there. And also, Jason's not here today, but also in the sports hub, there'll be areas where the youngsters can practice hitting the ball correctly. And from there, who knows, you could end up with a golf pro one day, you know, and not just a golf pro, but the opportunity where they can gain scholarships. They can choose to be whatever they want to be, but the fact is that the scholarships, they could earn it themselves if they have, obviously, the ability to play the game, but also the discipline and, of course, do their schoolwork.
Mr. Connor, you also made mention of marketing in the South American markets during our summer months. Of those countries, how many of them would need a visa to come to Anguilla?
That is a good question. I think what you find is that we would have marketed in Brazil and Argentina in the past. In fact, we market in many countries in South America. For those who, regarding visas, now Colombians don't need visas. A number of those who have American visas or UK or Canadian visas, they can come to Anguilla. But I think that, again, needing a visa is just a case of an application for a visa. So I think it's persons who want to come to Anguilla, and of course we want them to come. But again, it's a case of applying, going through that process.
Some of my other questions were already asked.
I also have a final question for Mr. Vanderpool. You would have mentioned a renewable energy project at the hospital for solar energy. And I think at the last press conference, there was mention of the solar project at the Aurelia Kelly Primary School. How does this play into the broader renewable energy program? Because I know there have been some concerns that the more private residents go to renewable energy, the bigger the impact would have on Anglic. So how does this all factor in? Is this like a continuous plan of government to turn all the buildings into solar? Do you encourage individual households to move to renewable energy?
Thank you for the question. I'll say this to say that Anglic's plan over the years has changed, because I do know that there was a vision. Take, for example, 20, 30 years ago, the vision would be that Anglic would be leading the renewable energy change. And I know that there were some persons who were advocating that whether it's electric cars, or the sale of solar systems and the maintenance of those systems should have been led by Anglic. But the reality is, over the years, a number of dynamics have just happened in real time. And we can see that even today, there are a number of persons who are leaving the grid, who are transitioning to solar. And we know that we are working as hard as we can with Anglic to quickly transition to renewables. But what it means is, with the changing context, and particularly when we look at the geopolitical landscape, what's going on in Iran, the global energy crisis, and the demand and rising cost of fuel, that the overall plan for Anglic, or the vision for Anglic, as it used to be, may not apply the same today because circumstances have changed. So it is a part of a larger picture in terms of how government wants to transition, but there are also ongoing discussions that are happening with Anglic to figure out how does Anglic's strategy have to change to match. So take, for example, the Public Utilities Commission will form a strong part of this role as the regulator of ANGLIC. Government's role is to set the policy, but we have to also ensure that in setting the direction that ANGLIC is also on board to make sure that whatever pathway forward for them is economically viable. So there's one school of thought that should say that ANGLIC should drive the renewables. They produce all of their renewables to make it so that it's less cost effective for persons on the grid to go into it. But then there's another school of thought that would say that if you already have solar on some government buildings and private households, how about you move towards a net billing or a grid-tied solution so that ANGLIC can buy back power at cheaper rates than it costs to generate them and provide it without needing the greater capital costs that would eventually be redundant if they were to do it all themselves. I say that all to say that we are transitioning towards trying to get as much as possible, even if we can get to 100. Some persons say 100% is impossible. I don't firmly believe that. I do understand that there's a certain level of base load, but I would say let's aim for 70 before we aim for 100. Once we prove to 70, we could figure out how to close that gap. But ultimately, it's a continuous revision. So I say all that to say it's ongoing. As context change on a day-to-day, we have to continue our conversations with ANGLIC and pivot and move and adjust to make sure that we get the overall best resolution. But yes, we're not just putting solar on government buildings without thinking of the impact of ANGLIC, the overall grid, etc. Because whether or not we focus on government transitioning, the reality is the private sector is transitioning, households are transitioning, and they are focused on their bottom line, their bottom dollar, and all of that has an impact for ANGLIC. So if government does not adapt, if ANGLIC does not adapt, they will be left behind.
Yes, so for Madam Premier, in relation to the budget, you would have mentioned that there are discussions with the ECCB, CDB, and other MTEF, yes, and other organizations. How does this play into the ECCB's big push initiative to double our economic output within the next 10 years for the entire currency union? How does Anguilla's role? What is Anguilla's role in that?
So the big push is slightly different. The MTEF is a medium-term economic and fiscal plan that sets out what our priorities are for the next 3 years. It's something that has been in operation for quite some time. And so this year, we will have, as usual, annually we have these persons on the ground that helps the Ministry of Finance and some persons in economic development help to fine-tune and flesh out our medium-term economic and fiscal plan that goes to the UK for approval. So in terms of the big push, I can't tell you that it necessarily is connected in any great way.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I think that brings us.
Before we go on, Premier, I just want to make it clear that in terms of the program for medication and the registration at the Ministry of Health that the minister spoke about a little earlier, the first phase of this particular program is to cover the individuals in Anguilla who do not have medical insurance. They have no coverage per se. So these are the individuals that we are trying to provide the medication for, and while we are collecting the data. So diabetic and hypertensive patients in Anguilla who are not covered by any form of insurance, these are the individuals who we want to target and want them to come in and register in the first phase of this pilot program.
With that said, is it for all ages or specific?
All ages, once you're not covered by any insurance at all. And then, in addition to that, once we gather that information, then phase 2 would move into something else, and so on and so forth. Because we really and truly, these non-communicable diseases, we are seeing the results of them, with high blood pressure, you got aneurysms and strokes and so on and so forth. Individuals who need to be amputated and so on and so forth. So we're trying to see if we could provide the medication for them, because we know medication, the cost of medication is increasing. It's high and it's increasing. And believe it or not, we have individuals who would parse it, so to speak, take a tablet today, skip tomorrow, take one the next day, when they have to take one tablet per day, so to speak. And of course, you know, with the increased costs, it's a burden not only on the individuals, but on their family members and so on and so forth, some of whom may have issues themselves. So that is who we are targeting in this first phase, individuals who, at any age, that if they don't have any type of insurance, these are the folks who we are targeting in this first phase.
Sorry, just to close out on Mr. Brooks's question, the big push would stand. The principles are things as climate resilience, climate change, the digital economy, economic diversification, etc. Those are all the principles that this administration, that we have in our people plan, that we're moving forward with. And the big push is a regional structure intended to go along the same thing. So when we do our medium-term economic and fiscal plan, we are talking about all of those things in there, but it's not necessarily because of the big push, but that is the direction that we're going, and so the two end up coinciding. So I just wanted to finish off my response to you. As we finish up, I just want to remind persons that Welch's Fest is on the 25th of May, which is on Monday, and we encourage all persons to come out and spend some time in Welch's and come eat and drink some of the delightful food that we have, and celebrating Anguilla's tradition, Anguilla's history. So that brings us to the end of this week's press conference, and we wish to thank you, those of you who are present and those of you who are listening and viewing via social media, and have a wonderful day and a very productive week.